we don't make it very deep into that very often. I like that second riff. That's pretty cool. Welcome to another edition of the Big 12 Mafia Show on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me are my partners and just generally good guys. That would be WildU and Moen. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
Very good. I hope
Tuesday.
You had a good. Yeah, happy Tuesdays, right? I hope everybody had a good weekend. Sorry I missed you guys on Friday. Had a family bit of an emergency with my mother. When you have people that have health issues, they take priority, and I know you know that family's number one around here. And I really appreciate all the support and all the kind messages that I received on Friday evening. I want to thank everybody for being here. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Hit that like button. Let us know how we're doing. Leave a comment or question. Consider joining and becoming a member of the Mafia family. Moen, how do they do that?
They go to the little cash icon in the bottom of the chat window. You can become a member through there. If you're watching on desktop, right next to the subscribe button is a join button. You can do that through there as well.
And we love those people that join. We love those new memberships and look forward to getting more of those out tonight. Another thing, make sure you subscribe and also turn on your notifications. I've neglected to say that earlier. Those notifications really big. It follows our Twitter behavior and also lets you know when we're going to be doing a show. So I think that's a lot of fun stuff, and we appreciate everybody being here tonight. Pretty laid back tonight. We do have world famous retired Fox executive Bob Thompson will be joining the show in just a little bit, hopefully, unless there's a conflict that I don't know about right now. We're looking forward to talking to him. Want to talk Big East basketball and the new TV deal. That's a big thing that we didn't really touch on last week. There was so much other news going on, but obviously that's Bob's wheelhouse, and he's going to open up and sort of share with us what he thought about it. Just from my messages with him, I think he's excited. There was a little bit more money in there than I think most people thought. Just really quick, just talking about that. When you guys first saw that, what is it? It's $80 million, right? For just basketball. What'd you guys think about that?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's a little bit okay. I'll be honest, they've got to be optimistic because they doubled their money, but we need to be serious about what kind of money we're talking about here. And I think that gets lost in translation. I haven't heard anybody else say actually what the per team payout is, and that's roughly $7 to $8 million.
It is,
per
yep.
school.
Yeah.
So we're not even talking significant dollars here, right? That's kind of Mountain West level money, right? Or American level money and stuff. But I guess, without any football, that's a little bit something. But they doubled it, right? And so what does that mean for the Big 12, for the SEC, for the Big 10 down the line? I think that all the conferences are looking at getting a boon for their basketball rights. But let's be real about it. Got to be honest about it. That's not going to be substantial like football. Those are going to – it's a nice little move and everything, but you can't be banking everything on basketball rights. It's just not where the money is, guys. We'll talk to Bob more about that later. There'll be some questions around that if he sees the percentage of football versus basketball rights changing. Right now, it's an 80 to 20 breakdown.
Right.
So 80 media contracts are built out. 80% of it's football, 20% of it's basketball. And if that changes down the line where it becomes 30 to 35% basketball, that's going to be a lot more substantial than it is today. But until that changes, really, basketball is going to be way back compared to football.
And I think there's kind of two opportunities. The next opportunity for the ACC is going to involve basketball funding as well as football. If that is renegotiated in February, where it's quite possible that could happen, it would be interesting to see, because the ACC had a pretty good year last year, to see how basketball attracts or loses funding for these annual budgets for these schools. Moen, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's interesting because it also puts into perspective Yormark's suggestion of breaking away the basketball rights for the Big 12 and putting them in a separate deal. Because, you think of the basketball entities that exist in the Big East, the Big 12 certainly has more basketball entities that are significant than the Big East.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the value proposition in basketball is a little different too. There's more advertising. It's a shorter program. So, even that part of it is a little bit different. I'm looking forward to seeing how they do, because I think, 6 broadcast partners they roped in for that thing. It was ridiculous. Like everybody has a little piece of those. It might even be more than that. If you guys can correct me if I read that wrong, please give us in the comment section. I'll amend my comment. But it was somewhere around 6 broadcast partners, and I think that's wonderful because that gives you expansion all across. I mean, everybody's seeing your product, and it's not just tied into ESPN or not just tied into a Fox.
The question is this, Kay. So if the Big East is making $7 million per team,
right,
with this new deal, and there's 3 major partners, there might be more too, like you're saying, and like a really good deal for them. What does that mean for the Big 12? Does the Big 12 KU is the biggest brand of all,
right,
bigger than anybody else in the Big East and stuff? But when you're outside of KU, looking at other Big 12 schools, maybe more mid-level basketball schools in the Big 12, how do those stack up versus the top end Big East schools? Like, is there a big lift and stuff viewership wise, or is it pretty even? So I'm wondering what the Big Ten, if you separated football and basketball, what would the Big 12 numbers look like? Rather than 7 million per school, can you get 12, 13 million per school?
Right.
I mean, it's not going to be completely outside of the bounds of the Big East because the Big East has won national championships. They're an elite basketball conference, but it's going to be higher, but it's not going to be like triple what the Big East made, even if you decouple.
One thing, and this obviously we're going into this early, Bob will want to run these things by him, but to me, I think there is a difference. You're talking Big East is small private Catholic schools, most of them, right, or religious of some sort. I believe every school in the Big East has an affiliation. Maybe, I guess UConn doesn't, but St. John's does, Villanova does. Maybe Creighton. I don't know about Creighton either.
I don't think Georgetown does.
Okay.
Providence.
I think Georgetown does, if I remember right. Anyway, regardless, smaller schools, right? Smaller alumni pools. You're talking Big 12. You're talking 3 or 4 times size of pool that they're reaching. So would it possibly be a 20 million? Is that out there? Is that number out there in 5 or 6 years when they renegotiate? I know that's what Yormark's tried and spoken about it. So we'll have to see. I'm going to jump in right here. We'll get ahead of everything else. And let's say happy birthday to the Evil Badger, Ryan Willie. Let's get a sounder in there, Moen.
Happy birthday, Evil Badger.
Happy birthday. One of the OGs, one of the guys that was first in the house to start watching our shows. Thank you so much, Ryan, for everything you've done for us, your loyalty, certainly your donations, your memberships, and everything. We really, really appreciate it. Moen, did you want to add anything to that?
He's an evil badger, but, I like him, and I like Wisconsin's chances this year. So I'll stick by defending Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin could be sneaky good. It's true. While we're waiting, and we got a little bit of time, let's do some shout-outs, shall we?
All right.
Let's start at the top. Timothy Green, first one in the house. Sounds like another very interesting show. Can't wait to see what Bob has to say. Let's go. That's what he says. Conundrum says, outstanding guest, somebody who knows something about what's going on. We sure hope so, Conundrum. Jan Holk, who sent me a DM over the weekend. Jan is continuing to recover. He sees our shows, and he's telling me that we buoy him up. So, Jan, thank you very much for everything you do for us. We really, really appreciate it, and continue to get better, would you? We want a healthy Jan Holk is what we want. Our first super chat of the night is Ryan Willie, who also is a member, so that's pretty awesome. Hi, College Football Mafia. The rumors aren't true that the Evil Badger doesn't work for EA Sports. I had nothing to do with Minnesota not getting any love on EA College Football 25. More information comes out about that stupid game every day. What do you guys think about that?
One, it's not stupid. Don't insult the game.
Okay, all right.
Wait until it comes out. Yeah, wait until it comes out before you make any judgment on it.
I was being facetious.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Greg mentioned it, that when they say you can rebuild a small program, they showed Minnesota.
No way, did they really?
Yeah, he said that on his show. Yeah, I heard that.
You can restore it to greatness.
Yeah. Right when the voiceover says that, it shows Minnesota. So, yeah, there's something in there.
About that.
Ryan, thank you so much for your super chat. Do we want to give him a $5 sounder there, Moen?
Sure.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
I like that very much. He also follows up and says the Evil Badger doesn't work at EA Sports. Okay,
I don't
thank
know
you,
about
Ryan.
that. I'm questioning that. Evil Badger. I don't know. We'll see.
Stephen Vitz here. He says, I have listened to Bob a few times before. He knows the TV markets work, in my opinion. Well, he only did it for 30 years. So, yeah, I think, Stephen, you're right. He does. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. Let's see here. Stephen Vitz. Sorry,
and Bob was the former president of Fox Sports.
Like, and he started, he was a founder of the Big Ten Network. So
this guy knows more than anything. That's why when Bob comes on, we shut up, we listen, we ask good questions. And you got any questions, put them in the chat.
He is the OG of Realignment Talk. There's no doubt about it. Laura White, sorry, Rock Chalk 94. Hey guys, so happy UT and OU are gone. They're officially out. June 30th was their last day. They are gone. Laura Weiss, also a member, says, hey y'all, with some cacti in there. Big Ears Bo says, just get Louisville and Pitt in the Big 12, FSU and Miami in the Big, and UNC and UVA in the SEC, and get it over with already. Big Ears is getting a little bit worn out with all this realignment talk. I agree with Louisville. I'm not sure on Pitt. FSU and Miami, sure. I just want both those schools to end up, in good places. And UNC, UVA to the SEC, I think if they can get out of their state deals, I think that's kind of a foregone conclusion. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Moan.
I don't agree with Florida State to the Big anymore. I think the chalk is SEC for Florida State. They land in the Power 2. Easier for their fans to travel. Cheers.
Okay, very good. And cheers. What do you think about Pitt?
Oh, man, Pitt fans are hard to deal with. But still, despite that, they belong in the Big 12 Conference. They belong paired with West Virginia for the backyard brawl. We need rivalries in this conference, and Pitt brings that despite the shortcomings of the program. So I do want Pitt in. I think Louisville and Pitt are no-brainers for the Big 12. As far as Florida State in the Big 10, I know there's a lot of smoke that is suggesting Florida State to the SEC, but I will remind folks that Florida State is the biggest brand remaining on the board right now. That's not in the SEC or the Big 10. So if the Big 10 does choose to pass on Florida State, I think that it would be a big mistake.
One problem there. There's a second largest brand still on the board. Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Well, Notre Dame's first, technically.
Still the largest, yeah.
Notre Dame is the largest brand, yes. Notre Dame is its own sphere, right?
Absolutely. If we have 80 people watching, you might be new to the channel. Our drinking game has been for a while. We might have to consider changing these names now. But they've been Syracuse and Georgia Tech. If you hear those schools, feel free to take a sip. Anybody who's watching the show right now and is sipping cannot drive, though. I'm pretty down about DUIs. And speaking of DUIs, I didn't mean to do this, but I have to do it because it's Big 12 news. It was actually a good setup, yes.
Really
let me go to Olly Gordon here. It's sad. Nobody wants to see people struggle. I certainly do not. But big news over the weekend. Olly Gordon was arrested. I'll read this headline. Jonathan Cooper on Twitter says, breaking, Oklahoma State star running back Olly Gordon was arrested for DUI over the weekend south of Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol says Gordon was going 82 and a 65. Man, if you're not doing 90 in Utah, you're not driving. So 82 is nothing to me. An affidavit says troopers found an open bottle of tequila or an open bottle of Pabst and an open bottle of vodka in his car.
Are you just drinking beer, vodka, and tequila all in one?
Evidently.
Yeah. Dangerous combination.
Yeah, that is a dangerous combination.
You guys want to add any comments to that? It is a news item, so I want to make sure we covered it tonight.
I mean, obviously, you college kids make mistakes. Like, this is a 20-year-old kid in college. The experiences are wild and everything. But, yeah, Bomber, don't drink and drive ever. It's not wise to do. Obviously, you get caught, you go to jail. And then, like, for Olly Gordon, I mean, really, this is going to cost him a lot. It's going to draft capital when he does lead to the draft. There's going to be questions all over this and stuff. It might lower him in the NFL draft, probably will. And like, there's questions about this Oklahoma State team, I guess, suspension wise. I mean, is he going to be suspended? Is it going to be 2 games, 4 games, 6 games? He's the best player on that Oklahoma State team. So it's a big blow to that program if he misses any games. So it's just really too bad. One of the best players in the Big 12, maybe the best player in the Big 12, might be out for an extended period of time.
Depending on how the breaks go, he could be in the Heisman chase this year, right? But if they actually suspend him, this goes through, and he loses any playing time, any chances of that are over.
Agreed.
Yeah, and millions of dollars in draft capital. You're talking in potentially tens of millions for a running back. It's just really sad. Anyway, Moen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be suspended from the team. I don't think he might sit out a quarter of their first game.
Okay.
But I want to give kudos out to law enforcement for actually doing the right thing there.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of colleges and institutions where law enforcement lets stuff like that slide.
Absolutely.
Columbus is not exempt.
Sorry.
So.
Yeah, that would be holding people accountable for their choices, right? We do. In our jobs, in our families, we have to do that. We would encourage just if you're in college, just enjoy college, please. Life sucks once you get out. We all want to be back. So just enjoy it while it's there and don't make any really dumb decisions anyway.
And take an Uber. This guy gets NIL money, right? That's no excuse. Just take a dang Uber if you're drunk. Okay, get drunk, whatever. That's fine. He's a college kid, but just take an Uber. Yep. He's learned that lesson, right?
You're exactly right. Yes. Let's get some more hellos. Daniel Gygax, another member. Hey, everyone. Good to see you, Daniel. Let's see. I'm just scrolling. RT in the house member says, evening all. Shonsky's also a member, says, how's everyone doing today? I think we're doing okay for a Tuesday, Shonsky. Good to see you. Line Ted says, good evening. Jay Chapman, our SEC local rep, says, hello, everyone. We in the SEC, baby. So SEC now has Texas and Oklahoma. Any thoughts about them joining the SEC, guys?
Man, the SEC just got extremely powerful. Those are huge brands. We know that the Texas Longhorns might be a pain in the butt, but they are massive, one of the biggest fan bases in the nation. Oklahoma's a proven winner. So really the SEC has really strengthened itself. It has a bunch of juggernauts, like seriously, the top half of the SEC. Man, they've got to find, as Moen, you've said, like they've got to find some schools that they can just beat on, right? So this next round of realignment for the SEC isn't going to be about adding football brands, in my opinion. It's going to be adding basketball brands and just schools you can pound upon because there's too many big football brands already. So that's one of the many reasons I don't think that Florida State and Clemson end up in the ACC.
Moen, sorry.
Yeah. This is very interesting what Texas said. Texas basically wrote a check last night and dared everybody to kick their ass.
That's true.
They said it's going to be covered in burnt orange. They've never seen anything like Texas. Texas is going to come in there and apparently dominate that conference.
Sounds like Utah.
They're going to go undefeated. Probably win every game by double digits according to them.
Oh Lord!
So whether it's on the road or not, Texas is number one. So if you're playing Texas this year, you might want to circle that date because just remember they basically dropped a bitch card on all of you.
That's surprising to me that they're setting themselves up. Ryan Thomas, one of the OG members, is certainly a contributor to the show, gives us a $1.99 super chat. It says, Pitt fans are East Coast Utes.
Okay, Bomber, give the people a heads up of what a Ute is.
I don't know.
Just lay it out, Bomber. You know what it is. Lay it out.
To me, a Utah Ute is somebody who has earned their way the last several years, but they're treading on kind of a young run of success, and their history is a little thin. Very good brand overall, but I think going into the Big 12, it might open up some eyes up on the hill. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so in local culture, for everybody that doesn't live in Utah, we're a little bit strange out here. So BYU fans call Utah Utes fans what Ryan Thomas has laid out right here, a Ute. Yep. That's how you spell it, the YEWTS. I do not know why they do that, but they do that. That is the derogatory term for a Ute fan, just to give you a heads up. But on the Utah side, the derogatory term for a BYU fan is a Zoob. Zoob or a Zoobie.
Yeah.
So that's just our little local nomenclature, Utes and Zoobies.
And if you see them, it's completely derogatory. It's not a pleasant thing.
Utah, even their derogatory names aren't that offensive.
Well,
you have to have it. You have to have it explained to you. So that
Utes and Zoobs.
Lonnie Johansson gives us a $5 super chat. He's also a member. We appreciate you, Lonnie. Hi from Northeast Kansas, and go BYU and UAU, and go Big 12. I will give you a heads up for Go Big 12. Thank you very much, Lonnie. We really appreciate your super chat and being a member. Thank you so much for that.
Let me give him a legitness.
Yeah, go ahead.
That was legitness. Yeah, it was. Huh?
I love it. All right, we've got, let's see here, some more people. Clint Moses in the house. Sounds like basketball money. Let's see.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah. That's true. Don in Kansas says, in your mark, we trust. Isn't that the truth?
Oh, gosh.
The
Absolutely.
Big 12 right now, yes. If it wasn't for your mark, I don't know where we'd be, to be honest. Anthony Easton says, when Louisville basketball gets good again, they are a cash cow. Yeah, tell everybody, Ute, about that. We did the Louisville breakdown, right, in WildU University.
Absolutely. Louisville's history in basketball is excellent. Last year, they were down bad in the ACC, but the history and the multiple national championships, multiple great teams, runs, they've got one of the best histories if you throw them into the Big 12, and that basketball program will rise in the Big 12. So Louisville, man, if they get in the Big 12, that's going to be one of the strongest schools in the Big 12 in football and basketball every year. It's the best fit for the Big 12. Come home, Cards. Come home.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in Louisville being the first school that comes once the separation fee, whatever that is, for the ACC happens. I think Louisville's building towards that right now. And I don't know. If they come in and they're ripping and roaring and ready to go, they could be successful pretty early in the league, I think. Moen, did you want anything to that?
Yeah, if Louisville's had multiple chances to get that basketball program back up. And
right. Well,
so far they have not succeeded. So show me something first. You got to show me for me to believe.
Are they a basketball brand though, Moen? Is Louisville?
Sure, they're a basketball brand, but
when you think Louisville, you think basketball.
You think basketball, but every year that they keep not hitting the level they used to hit, it keeps sinking. It's not like Kansas; they don't have 100+ year legacy of great basketball to fall back on.
This is what I think about Louisville. It's just like the schools that came in from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. The energy level that the Big 12 fans have, the way the league is so into the passion, the ACC doesn't have that except for a few schools. Certainly the Pac-12 was certainly very short on that type of energy. I personally believe once Louisville was in the Big 12, I think that they could take that and they could really harness it. Maybe hire Rick Pitino back and
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Really
don't sleep on Louisville's football either. I mean,
I'm not saying anything bad about them. Sure. I just wanted to point out that WildU University, we do all these videos. Really, it's all background. These are all members only videos. Timeline. We've got Koo's Corner. We've got some shows on here of his. Certainly, we have all the WildU universities that have come out about schools going to the Big Ten or potentially going to the SEC or even the Big 12. Recently, our newest ones we have. Is this actually out? The big WildU University breaking down the big viewership share. Why don't you tell everybody about that one?
So if you're this one is might be a little jarring for some folks in the Big Ten, but guess what? Here we're going to analyze every conference and not just the Big 12 and the ACC. This breaks out the viewership share for the Big Ten conference, and it's pretty surprising to see it and everything. I think everyone intuitively knows that Michigan and Ohio State really are ratings juggernauts, but when you break out really how strong that is compared to the average of the Big Ten is pretty crazy to look at. So that video breaks it down, all the numbers, the viewership shares, who brings what based on the Nielsen rated games over the last 8 years, throwing out the COVID season. So take a look at it. There's a concept in there called the viewership average hurdle rate. It's basically like a hurdler jumping over a hurdle or under the hurdle or getting hit by the hurdle. So does your Big Ten team jump the hurdle? Check it out.
Very good. And that's the latest one, but we've got many more. Moen rants, Notre Dame drives the bus. Moen, you want to plug that for 15 seconds?
Yeah, I got drunk and ranted on Notre Dame.
There we go. We have Miami possibly to the Big 12. That was a live show. A lot of fun. We had that. That was a members-only live show we did. And then we have these others, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and UConn. Anyways, that's what membership has its privileges, and that's what we provide to you. So if you do become a member, like we've got a new member right now, right this second, Moen, do your thing right here.
Alexander Smitley has become a YouTube member.
Thank you, Alexander.
Winner.
I appreciate you joining, and make sure after the show you go and watch those special videos in our membership section on the main page. Hopefully you enjoy them. If there's any comments you have about them, certainly you can give them to us on Twitter or on YouTube. Anyway, thank you very much, Alexander. I appreciate your membership and having me here.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. In looking at this Bob Thompson interview here in a few minutes, just asking the community if there are any really like solid questions that you've been pressed on that you want to ask Bob. We'll see if we can grab one or two out of the chat. Like we've got some prepped and everything, but I think it's fair to throw it out there and see if you have anything too that we can ask Bob Thompson.
Let's get to a couple more shout outs. First of all, Jay Chapman followed up his comment by saying your mark is razor sharp, a lot better than I gave him credit for at first. And that's saying something since they've moved on to the SEC. Dan Miter's here. Good to see you, Dan. Hello, everyone. Like the fourth vibe, Moen. You're going to have to watch our show schedule. Right now, we're planning on doing a Friday show, regular time, 7 Eastern. I don't know if I'm going to get to my show tomorrow night or not. I had some scheduling foul-ups last week, and I need to make sure we have the full crew there. Either way, watch Twitter and YouTube if you have your notifications on, because I might just drop in and do a show. There's some things I want to talk about we could do before the holidays. It'd be kind of fun. So, and if you want me to do a show, send me a message and let me know that would be something you want. Conundrum says Creighton is Catholic. See? And that's what that league has, right? It has a bunch of those. Chief Fan says West Virginia was disrespected in the preseason poll. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of schools that are all over the place on that. We haven't done our Big 12 breakdown yet. Is there anything you guys want to tell Chief Fan here?
West Virginia is getting massively disrespected in all the polls. It's shocking, actually, how disrespected they are. Who are you going to put them over? I'll consider putting them over KU and others, but Iowa State's going to be a contender there. K-State and Utah, or West Virginia is going to be there, and UCF. Really, there's a lot of good top-end schools in the Big 12. So it's hard to figure out where they kind of slot in and everything, but I feel you. Seems like the Mountaineers are getting dissed.
West Virginia is going to be anywhere from 4 to 9. It just depends how strong the league is on the top end. But now that we've had this Olly Gordon news, maybe Oklahoma State's going to struggle, at least at the beginning of the year, depending on what his punishment is. Anyway, it's going to be a good year in the Big 12 for football, but we all agree West Virginia was rated way too low. Skaven, yes, says, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you, Skaven. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. Get out some more hellos. Jeff Morgan. I remember when DePaul was pretty good. In the 80s and 70s and 80s, DePaul was awesome. They were a tournament giant. You didn't want to play DePaul as a 4 seed. That was an auto loss. And going to Chicago is not the easiest trip. There he is, the one, the only, Bob Thompson.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing, Bob?
Very well, thank you.
Glad to have you here. It's been about a month or so since we talked last.
I was a little delayed on that.
Moen's got a new soundboard, so we have to put up with it.
I gotta use it. Gotta use the toys.
Just really quick about you and your family. You guys going to do anything fun for the 4th?
No, we just got back from being out on the road for about 10 days. So we're going to hang tight in the Immaculate's not here, but it's 110 right now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Ooh.
Really, really hot in the
No,
south.
It's been hot. It's been hot.
Yeah.
It's about, we were on the East Coast in Cape Cod area. It was 40 degrees cooler.
Gee, mini Christmas. And it feels colder than that because of the humidity too.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. But
that's
anyway,
quite the culture shock then to go from one to the other.
We're home for a while.
Did you happen to catch my John Kenzano interview?
I did. I watched it yesterday.
And how'd we do?
I thought you did great. He's a character. He's got a lot of stories to tell, and
he does.
He's a really good guy too. I mean, he does some great stuff. This week or next week he puts on a camp for disabled kids, challenged kids, and he gets all the players from Portland State and some of the other schools around there, and they have just a great week. And he doesn't ever talk about it, but it's just an amazing thing that he puts together every year.
When this realignment stuff, he was forefront, him and John Wilner, through all the Pac-12 stuff, and he took a lot of hard hits there. And but it took me a long time to figure out the reasoning behind that. A year later, everything clicked in my head and it completely changed, and I realized that you're only as good as the information you're given. And I really feel like John was manipulated, taken advantage of, used for some maybe ill-gotten reasons, and
without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, and he that's the difference between him and a guy like Stephen A. Smith, who just gets on and spews whatever's in his mind. John he's a reporter first and foremost, and so he's going to print. If he trusts in his sources, assuming they haven't burned him in the past, he's going to print what they tell him, and that's the best he can do. And if it turns out that it was orchestrated, or they didn't know what he was talking about, or they didn't know what they're talking about, that's really nothing he can do. He called me once after he did an interview with the Oregon State president. She was new, and she talked to him for about 45 minutes, and he thought, she's pretty much on this stuff. And then like 2 days later, Kleofkoff gave a talk somewhere and said the exact same things.
Yeah, he told me that.
Yeah, he found out later that they'd been on the call for about 40 minutes before he's feeding him, so he got played, and that's unfortunate, but it's going to happen sometimes especially when people have ulterior motives and are trying to derail certain things from happening.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciated him spending some time with me. I hope to join him on his radio show sometime soon. And I'm still trying to grab the white whale that is John Wilner right now. He doesn't do radio very often, so we're going to have to see if I can catch him. Anyway, that's enough of that. I appreciate you being here, especially on a holiday week. Let's jump right in. Let's talk Big East basketball. Let's talk, roughly $8 million a school over, I believe it was, is it 6 years? How long was that term? Do you remember?
I don't recall. I want to say it's 6 years, and I think it's about double what they were getting.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of on average.
And did that surprise you?
No, not really. I think the success that the Big East has had in basketball over the term of the last deal, the facts that Fox really likes it for its East Coast affiliates. It doesn't really have anything else on the East Coast, so smattering of Big Ten games, basketball games. So I think for them, it's good for not only the broadcast network, but also FS1. I was surprised a little bit that CBS dropped out, but I can also see the rationale for WBD. If you're going to lose the NBA, you got to start backfilling, and I think you've seen some of that going on over the last month with the CFP game and the CFP games, and they picked up some second or third tier, or whatever you want to call it, Mountain West Conference games for True TV. They're definitely doing some backfill for potentially losing the NBA, which I do believe they are going to lose. So, and then NBC, NBC first and foremost is always about Peacock, and so I think that they'll probably put some games on USA Network, the bulk on Peacock, and a game here or there on on NBC.
Yeah. How many partners do you remember? We were just discussing it. Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared. I couldn't find the article before
There's
the
three.
show.
There'll be
Is it
three now. There
Okay.
used to be two just in CBS.
Okay.
And well, I guess I take that back. Some stuff was offloaded to Fubo.
Right. I thought the number was 6. So that's why I was confused and I was asking.
No.
Okay.
If you count Peacock and NBC as 2 or.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about is, the sub brand.
I mean, just put it this way. You can
TNT, TBS.
You could put them on wherever. I'm sure there has some flexibility to put them wherever they want.
Okay.
So I think that the interesting thing is that what you've seen is that packages that used to have, say, two entities involved, like the CBS Fox with the Big East, there's now 3. And in
Right.
some, and you've seen that with the Big Ten. What you're getting and you're seeing is people are paying more for less games. So the total dollars go up, but you're paying less games. And I liken it to a form of, a term called shrinkflation. It's like your candy bar used to be this big,
right?
For $2. Now your candy bar is this big, and it's $2.50.
Yeah, cereal is the biggest.
Cereal is the perfect example of that, and I think you're going to see that when the NBA deal comes out. You're really going to see it because ESPN is going to take significantly fewer games, and they're going to be paying probably twice as much, but fewer games. They're going to give up certain rights, but they're going to pick up international rights and probably expanded streaming rights. So they're paying more money and they're getting less total games, but they're getting much more broader rights for the games that they're getting. So that's kind of you see a lot of that going on these days. And it's when money's tight, but people are still, distributors or rights sellers are still expecting increases. That's what you're going to see. Fewer games, more money, and then that's what necessitates a third or a fourth partner to come into the package as well.
Okay. So, Bob, what are broader rights? Yeah. So, are we talking like just from domestic to like international rights, or what?
Yeah, the ESPN piece my understanding is it's going to have an international component, and ESPN has significant international distribution, especially in South America. They have, I don't know if they still have the stuff in India or not, but they have also they got broader digital rights. So they had some digital rights as part of their current deal because they would stream some games on ESPN Plus. But I think they're going to have much broader rights and the ability when they take ESPN, the mothership, to a direct-to-consumer model, they'll have the right to put all those games on there as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so Bob, super stoked to be talking with you and everything. So question then, so with this new Big East deal, doubling the media rights, in your view, looking forward, looking the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, are the breakdown of media rights going to continue being 80% for football and 20% for basketball, given these recent developments?
You're going to ask me the one question I can't answer.
Oh, no, forget it. We'll throw it out.
Wait a second. You didn't tell me that was off the board.
I can say this part now, which I couldn't in the past. So I was, and if anybody got interested and read the documents from the House versus NCAA and the 5 conferences, I was the expert witness for the NCAA and the 5 conferences. And the bulk of what I testified about was the value of football in general to the total and the other things that are in rights deals that are of value that are things that aren't necessarily related to things on TV, like sponsorships agreements and, all this other stuff that comes into those deals. So while the case has been somewhat settled, the judge hasn't signed off on it yet. So
that's right.
I still have somewhat of a gag order. And the probably the most sensitive thing is the percentages of what sport's worth what on a conference by conference basis. So I can't really go there. What I can tell you is I don't know that the Big East deal is a bellwether because it's a basketball only conference. And And because you look at it, I mean, you're talking $80 million versus, you know, a Big Ten contract, which is, you know, 5-6 times. I can't even remember what it is. It's like $500 million a year or something, isn't it? No, it's
Big Ten contract isn't over $1 billion.
Everybody's going to get $72 million, and there's like 18 teams. Yeah, so it's over $1 billion. So we're talking $80 million versus $1 billion. So I can't get from A to B by looking at the Big East contract and comparing it to other contracts. And does that mean everybody else is going to double because the Big East went from 40 to 80? I don't know that that's going to be the case.
Understood.
Moen?
All right, Bob, I've got a question for you about brands and markets, and we'll make it hypothetical. So we're not talking about anybody in particular, but hypothetically, if there was a large brand, but then there was a bigger market, is it possible that somebody would select market over brand in that instance?
You know, 5 years ago, I probably would have said no. Now I would say it's possible, because in the past, it was all about subscriber revenue and how many subscribers you might get, or how much you might add to your cable network, or you might be able to increase your affiliate fees from $1 to $1.50, or from $2 to $2.50. It's not about that as much anymore. I mean, certainly viewership and markets are important, but what really drives viewership these days is matchups. And that's kind of what the SEC has lived off for years. And I think the rest of the college football world and college sports world in general is catching up to the fact that good matchups are going to draw numbers just as much as big markets will draw numbers. And the fact that the revenues are no longer predicated so much on affiliate revenue or retransmission consent revenue has kind of turned the tables on is it markets versus brand.
So it sounds like brands growing in influence then over a market. Is that correct?
I would say yes. I mean, I think certainly, you know, big brands and big markets, you win both ways, right?
Sure.
But, you know, if I was to say little markets versus little brands, I'd take big brands and little markets before you know, anything else. So I don't know that you can't say it for every part of the country, but I think there's certain parts. And I think what Moen's talking about is, you know, big brands that's extremely important, and more so now than it used to be in the past.
I want to really quick, just so everybody knows, we have Bob for a limited amount of time. He eventually gets tired of us and wants to leave. But if you have a question you just got to have asked, make it a super chat, and I guarantee we'll read it. Other than that, it's going to be tough to fight through some of these comments. We'll do what we can. I know you can't talk about the house thing, right? But what stood out to me, and it still just amazes me, is how the Big Four conferences are now dictating to everybody else, and it's all based on football revenue, but they're using basketball as the pay method, or deleted, right? They're taking money from some in that regard too. During all of that, when that was all being put together, did it surprise you at all that they didn't even have one representative in the room?
No.
Okay.
I mean, they haven't had a representative in the room for a long time. I mean,
okay.
The P5's basically been running things, and it's down. It's, you know, it's P4 now. I think they kind of let the commissioner from the Pac-12 hang around.
Right. That's true.
So they could.
That's true. Yeah.
It's not surprising. It is a little surprising to me. You know, you're correct that they used the NCAA tournament disbursements for the men's basketball to, you know, pay a good chunk of the fine, and that is going to disproportionately, certainly as a percentage of athletic department revenues, hurt the smaller schools, the basketball only conferences, and the G5s, because the bulk of their revenue is derived, or a good portion of their revenue, in some cases all the revenue, is derived from the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So that was a bit of a surprise, and there's already been some squawking about that. I can't remember what school somebody sued about that setup with
I think it was somebody in a SWAC or something like that.
Yeah.
Sued. But just to follow up on that, do you see the possibility that they bind together and a bunch of schools do a class action?
This day and age, I guess anything's possible. I think that I read today some players prior to the House period, which was 2017, so 2016 and earlier, have filed suit that they are, deserved of some money as well.
Okay.
Some other schools have said, we don't want to be part of that settlement. We're going to opt out. I think you'll see a variety of those things. The one thing I can be pretty safe in saying, and that is, I don't know that this necessarily, as much as they would like to think, alleviates the NCAA from future lawsuits and action. It may solve a significant amount of the problems that are hanging around right now with the House case as well as others, assuming Judge Wilkin approves it. But I don't know that it necessarily resolves all their problems going forward.
You're a consultant. You want this to go on as long as you can, right? You want to keep getting paid.
Lawyers and consultants are undefeated.
That's right.
Steve-O gives us a super chat for $2. Thank you, Steve-O. He says, is Fox and the Big Ten desperate to get in the South, or is that a myth? Desperate is the word that I think is probably the operative.
Yeah, I don't know if desperate's the right word. I think, there's certain things that you need to have, things that are nice to have, and things that you don't really care about. And I would probably put, that in the nice to have, but not need to have. Look, I think let's talk about the ACC in general here. There's a lot going on here. You've got 4 lawsuits in 3 different states.
Right.
You've got the Florida Attorney General suing ESPN. And you've got, ESPN, I am sure, is probably prepared to go to battle on anything that would expose significant details in their agreement.
Right.
And the judge in Florida, who's been they're probably furthest along, although I heard there was something was going on in North Carolina today between North Carolina and Clemson, but I haven't read the specifics. But the judge in Florida has, he's a big fan of mediation. He said he sends everything to mediation, and which I think is a good thing. But Florida State's been very adamant that they're not going to mediation,
right,
unless they see that ESPN contract. And ESPN is going to do whatever they can do to not, get those contracts out there in a court where, for all the world to see, because that's their business. That's their trade secrets. That's their, plans for the nuclear weapon. You can't just have that stuff floating around. And I would be really shocked if a judge, made them do that as part of a, settlement process or mediation process. I think that they're going to have to, if anything they get would be so redacted, it wouldn't even be worth printing it on a piece of paper, because it's just going to be black, because it's all redacted.
Just buy black paper.
Right.
Print on that.
Right.
Another $5 super chat says, Moen and I have been saying market allocation forever. Marcus Williams says, can you explain why ESPN can't broker a deal to move FSU and Clemson to the SEC to keep inventory? And just so you know, Bob, we have explained this over the last year or so. We have tried to explain why, you have some calculations and switching in there that can't just be a straight across 1-for-1.
Right.
But obviously they're asking for some further clarification.
Well, the first thing would be this little thing called tortious interference with an existing
which is what
contract.
we've said. Yeah.
So, that's a tough one. And then, look at ESPN's standpoint, in ESPN's perfect world, Clemson and FSU stay at the ACC and get paid half of what they're paying the SEC team.
100%.
So, I think that, there's certain moves that are wins for networks if schools move from conference to conference. There are others that are losers, and then there are others that are a push. And I don't know that that's a clear winner to the extent that ESPN is going to be out there trying to pull the levers to make it happen. There's a lot of, there's a lot of magnifying glasses on these deals right now because of some of the moving that's been going around. And it's somewhat amplified by this new venue sports triumvirate of ESPN, Fox,
right,
and WBD Sports. That's, these guys, they got to get it off the ground. And the last thing they want to be doing is giving the impression that they're, back there pulling the puppet strings and moving schools around. So I think everybody's probably walking on eggshells. I'll tell you this much. If I was in a position at one of these networks, I would certainly have my people walking on eggshells to avoid the impression of any type of king making going on.
Yeah, because that would be really bad. Look, if something something was in the news that said they've actually been talking, right? That would be big trouble.
You don't want that at all.
Ute.
So going back to the brand discussion, and you are the perfect person to ask this question to, Bob. See if you can answer this in any which way, shape, or form. So when we're talking about brand in the past in our discussions, you made mention that brands, like a school's brand, is something that you can't really quantify, but it, you feel it.
Right.
Like it's just kind of like this, almost like idea, right? But like it's like an emotional thing. But is there any type of anything like metric or anything else that could point to maybe what would be a good brand versus a mediocre brand or anything else that you would actually consider to be useful?
Yeah, there's things that I've looked at in the past, and that's social media accounts are relevant. Alumni following, and by that I mean not just how many alumni you have, but how many alumni are involved. For instance, in an alumni association, what your donor roster looks like, because those things are all indicative to me of the value of a brand, especially if you say, as some wise president, I can't remember who, said, athletics are the front porch to your university.
Right.
And that was a very prophetic thing to say, and that because it's true. Right. I think it really is. All you have to do is look at how enrollment increases at schools when they get hot, from a sports standpoint.
Yep.
It's a proven fact. So, those are the things. I mean, there's entities out there. The guys that navigate research do a great job of valuing, brands. There's a thing that they use in Hollywood called the Q rating, which
right.
is kind of like it's applied primarily to movie stars and things like that. But it's I don't know what it is, but that's what it's called, a Q score, Q rating. Yeah. And it's indicative of your popularity or the value brand of your, the value of your name. And it's frequently used by movie producers when casting roles in Hollywood. So that's the type of thing you're looking for. And you just have to kind of switch it over and get it to equate to a collegiate brand.
Very good. Thank you.
Timothy Green, another member, says, I would like to personally thank Bob for coming on the show and explaining all of this to us.
My pleasure.
We have a very grateful fan base that watches our shows, and we appreciate them, and we appreciate you being here. I want to follow up on sort of aside to what you were just talking about, and I realize there's some things you're embargoed. You can't just tell me if this is one of them. But about 3 weeks ago now, I guess it's almost 3 weeks, the story leaked about private equity in the Big 12. And from what I understand, I heard this from some people that I know work at the Big 12 offices. Brett Yormark was not at all happy that those stories leaked. But private equity as it stands, do you have any issue? Do you see any operational problem with conference taking private equity money and using it to pay fees for other schools to possibly move to their conference? Do you see anything? Can you imagine anything from a commercial standpoint? Because we've asked people on the sports side, and we've asked people on the legal side, but we haven't really had anybody to answer us from the TV side.
Well, let's see. I've done a fair amount of work with private equity companies, both when I was at Fox and as a consultant. And the thing that always gets me, and when it comes to talking about private equity and as it relates to schools or institutions, is it truly equity, or is it just a loan? Are they really going to own something? Right. And if they're going to own it, I guarantee you, all the private equity guys I've been involved with, if they've got money in the game, they're going to have a say on how things happen and how things go down and how decisions are made. And I think you have to be careful if you're a conference or individual schools are looking at it as well. If you really want these guys in your conference room with you when you're making decisions, because if they have that much skin in the game, and we're talking 15%, worth some big amount of money, they're gonna want some say in how things go. The other thing that I always learned early on from my dealings with private equity, the first thing they're thinking about is how they're going to get out. What's their exit strategy? And if you look at that, you might like dealing with these guys, private equity guys, whoever they are, say it's Redbird Capital or whoever, Eris Management, Rain Group. There's a ton of private equity firms out there. But if they have the right to get out and basically sell it down the road to somebody else, you might not like those guys they sell it to, and they might have different expectations. And so, if it's a school and it's a public institution that needs money, I'd be much happier, depending on what your covenants are and what you can do, but based on your bylaws and what the state allows you to do, I'd go float bonds before I invited private equity in.
Okay.
I know certainly private schools can't do that, but a lot of private schools have endowments that are so big, they could probably take a loan against their endowments or something along the lines. I think there's a lot of ways to raise cash without necessarily having to go to private equity and without having the kind of lingering effects of having private equity involved with your operations. But I think it's something everybody's got to look at, and I think that people would be remiss not to look at it. Because as things go forward and you start talking about having to come up with $22 million a year for,
operations, basically
to pay people to pay, how are you going to swing that in this day and age with, pressure on media rights and pressure on tuition fees, all the pressures that are out there? How are you going to, you're not going to get there just selling a patch on a uniform or something on the 20-yard line. So they're going to have to do something, and certainly going down the private equity route makes sense to at least examine. I don't know if it makes sense in practicality to put into place.
Okay. Moen, do you have another one?
Yeah. Let's talk about brand value. Let's say there's a hypothetical brand out there that brings along such a value that they could basically call their shot and bring partners along. Do you see either the Big Ten or the SEC bringing along partners that might not necessarily want to satisfy and achieve getting this huge brand?
I think for the Big Ten and the SEC, not so much. I think, you could look at the ACC and say, well, that's what they did with SMU.
Right.
If you're talking about that kind of situation, somebody who pays their own way and doesn't really care how much they get in disbursements, it's more about I want to be at the big boys table, and I'll deal with the money some other way. I think that if you look at, certainly, and I put the Big Ten and the SEC in there, I don't know that they would necessarily do that. Let somebody buy the way in. It'd be surprising. I think they'd probably have to really want you before you got in.
Makes sense. Do you have one more question? We're wrapping up here.
Yep, absolutely. So last question. So in your opinion, Bob, what's like the one thing that's happening in the college landscape, especially the realignment landscape, that folks aren't really talking about that could shape really what it looks like in 10 years?
Well, one thing, I mean, there's a couple of things. So one thing that I still haven't seen a true understanding is, as it relates to the settlements that are proposed through the House, as well as the other cases, if they all get wrapped into one, how it's going to be Title IX,
right?
Because it's a big question, and interestingly, the courts have kind of said, well, we'll let them figure that out. They aren't. I don't think they're going to rule on it when it comes out of the current cases. I think they're going to have to figure it out. And is this money? It's the 22 million might be Title IX, but all NIL is free money and doesn't have to be Title IX. So and so I guess that is what I'm saying is kind of how the crossroads of NIL, and student athletes as employees at some point, where do they cross, and what's the delineation between the two? Are they both subject to Title IX? Is just the payments to the student athletes subject to Title IX, or is NIL in there, or is NIL truly because you have a good name, image, and likeness that is of value to these advertisers? So the thing that hasn't been really approached, I mean, I've seen some suggestions, but I don't know that it's been decided one way or another, is how that's going to come down as it relates to Title IX. The other thing is the thing that we've all been talking about for years, and that is in the late 2020s, as the rights deals come up next time around, is there a breakaway? And that's, I don't know that I know anything that's going on there more than anybody else. But I just know that based on every time there's been a kind of, the moon and the sun and the stars align, and there's a bunch of rights deals coming up at the same time, like we have in 2030,
right?
And the 2 years before and 2 years after, stuff happens. And it was that way in 2010 through 12. It was that way, it's always been that way. And you had it this time around. And it's the thing now, for those of us who like to talk about this stuff, they're not 12-year deals anymore.
Right.
5 or 6 year deals. So
yeah,
we're going to be talking about this before you know it. Even though some of the deals, the Big Ten's only in its second year, the Big 12 deal hasn't even started yet.
Yep.
ACC, who knows where that deal is going to be, depending on what options are exercised. And then you get the SEC that goes a couple of years past 2030, I think 2032. So, and you got the CFP schedule in there. You got NFL potential opener in there, which is probably going to get open because they now may owe somebody $14 billion because they didn't sell Sunday ticket to everybody.
Yeah, right.
Just paying the lawyers and the consultants and they're probably going to have to post a bond for $4 billion while they appeal, and you're going to pay interest on that. I can pretty much guarantee you that if the Sunday ticket thing does come down and is enforced, they're going to open up that deal in 2020. I don't know what year it is. They have an opener after like 6 years. So, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming down at that time. So it's going to be interesting because they all play together, because a lot of what drives this obviously is TV money, and everybody's going to be kind of figuring out what they want to have and how they want to move forward. And hopefully at that point, we're going to have a better idea of how the TV business in general is moving forward. Have we made the complete leap to streaming? Is linear still alive, or what? And I think, at some point we'll really have a much better understanding.
We have one more super chat from Carrie Go Knowles, a $10 super chat. Thank you, Carrie. Says, Happy Independence Day, Big 12 Mafia. Notre Dame can suck our milk as well. Most overrated team BS I have ever seen. Milk. And Moen, play the drop, would you please?
No, not just play the milkman, Moen, please.
Play the drop, Moen.
I'll wait till Bob leaves before I play.
I mean, you got to be respectful for Bob.
He doesn't care.
I don't want him thinking we're all.
I'm not touching that Notre Dame one though.
We got another member as well, Test Subject 38. I hope you're doing well, Test Subject. Thank you for becoming a new member. We really, really appreciate you. Remember after the show to go in and watch those WildU University videos. All right, Moen, did you have one last question? Because I have one last one.
Yeah, I got one real quick. Okay. Bob, who's going to win the national championship this year?
I haven't got into I'm still waiting for, everybody to get resolved with the portal thing.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know. I think I got to say this though. I'll go out on a limb and say it's going to come out of the Big Ten.
Okay.
Wow.
Again.
Your Oregon
but probably
Ducks,
but not the one who won last year.
I don't know. I think Michigan's going to be down this year a little bit. My last question is, let me give you a date. On August 31st, how many teams are in the ACC?
I'm not going there.
I know you can't. I thought I could try sneaking it in at the end. Bob, we appreciate you so much.
All right, guys. Have a good week. Have a
happy Fourth.
Happy Fourth.
Happy Fourth to you guys as well. Stay safe. Don't blow your hands off.
We'll see you in August, okay?
All right. Take care.
All right. See you later. Thanks a lot, Bob. Clap him out. Bob Thompson, the man. The reason that last question is funny is because that was a question I couldn't ask him. So that's why we all laughed. Bob, we really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for spending your time. Boy, you blow people's minds every time you come on the show. And if you're new and there's 150 people watching this live, if you caught just the end of Bob's interview, when the show's over, go back and watch it. That's one of the best interviews we've had with him.
It was up there. But right now, we have commitments that we have to uphold.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Sucking you, sucking you, and sucking you. They've been sucking you, sucking you, and sucking you. They've been sucking you, sucking you, and sucking you.
Ray,
You're sick of it. I get it. They've been sucking you, sucking you, and sucking you. They've been sucking you, sucking you, and sucking you. They've been sucking you, sucking you, and sucking you. You're sick of it. I get it.
Bob, I hope you're still watching because that is for you. We've had a lot of super chat. Yes,
everybody can thank Carrie for that. You can thank Carrie for that.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. We really appreciate it. Anything takeaways tonight from Bob?
So many takeaways, but I think I love having the conversation about what is a brand with Bob because he understands that more than anybody else you'll ever talk with, and so having him be able to say, hey, you know what, like here's a way to kind of link what a brand is and everything is super valuable. As a data guy, I love that type of conversation. And obviously intriguing wise, the intrigue at the very end when he said, when the contracts are up, the next question is there going to be a breakaway? Hey, I know that folks hate to talk about that. I know it's divisive and everything. We brought that up last week and a lot of folks got really upset. I get it. But guys, listen, that is going to be in consideration, a breakaway when the contracts expire. Not to say it's a given or a guarantee, but you need to consider it.
Moen?
Yeah, you really caught him on that ACC question right out the door, huh? That was very nice.
Hey, I thought it was a good question.
It's always typical. You got to tiptoe around certain things for Bob. That's why I use hypotheticals that way.
Right.
But it was interesting to hear his take on brand versus market size.
Absolutely.
And I would add to that just the fact that it isn't something he can outright answer. You could read into a little bit, right? So the ACC right now is the top of everybody's mind. Florida State, ESPN, Clemson, UNC, the list goes down. It's not going away, guys. I mean, we're not talking about this realignment stuff. We're not talking about conference expansion and contraction because we want to. It's what everybody wants to hear and what we're talking about. So Bob coming in and answering any questions about this. I thought the private equity answer was fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's one of the better ones.
You let private equity in your conference, they're going to have influence, they're going to have say, and you are slave to your lender, guys. And that is your lender right there. If they're going to give you a loan, or if they're an equity partner, they're actually legit a partner. Basically, it's like giving a couple seats up, and they'd act as a couple schools and have that type of influence in your conference. So
Yeah,
private equity is certainly not the way to go unless you absolutely have to have it.
There has to be an immediate return and a long-term goal. There has to be
100%.
something bigger than just I need cash today to pay your $22 million. I still think that would be crazy.
Well, yeah, the 22 millions every year too.
Every year, yeah, it doesn't go away.
So,
yeah.
it's just
One of the other news items that we didn't get a chance that I want to make sure I touch on because we do try to cover all of college football. This headline out of Utah State. Breckman Murphy says Utah State coach Blake Anderson is unlikely to return after being put on administrative leave. He's out. AD Dana Sabau, who I believe is new on the job, told the staff Anderson's leave was the result of an investigation. The investigation was around sexual harassment and how you deal with issues around that. You know, some of the more egregious things that can happen. And evidently he didn't turn around the answers that they wanted to give him. I believe he was on already a timer anyway. And the fact that he didn't meet or comply with that tells you everything. Let's see. AD Dana Sabau says told the staff Anderson's leave was a result of an investigation. It didn't sound good, said a source. Last year, 3 players were arrested for sexual assault. Anderson was 23 and 17 in 3 years, and he went to 3 consecutive bowls at Utah State. That's good. But what do you guys think about this headline?
Get in control of your program. Sexual assault's not okay. You can't nuke that. You can't make jest of that. He did. He was making jokes about sexual assault and kind of trying to minimize it and everything else. That is not acceptable. You can't do it as a coach nowadays. So goodbye.
Yeah. Moen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, he's already lawyered up, so
he's going to sue to try to get his money back.
To try and get his money back. So
yeah.
Hopefully Utah State did a very thorough investigation and has all their T's crossed and all their I's dotted.
I will say this: the administration at Utah State is usually very, very good. They're quick to respond to things. So this will be a test. A lot of people are going to be watching, especially because Utah State has been better than average over the last decade, and it would be sad to see that program just explode because of something like this. Anyways, I wanted to make sure we covered that as a headline item. There was one other thing. I'm not going to bring up the article, but Clemson refused the ACC to switch their game against South Carolina. ACC wanted to change the date to the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Clemson said, nah, not going to do it. So everybody kind of takes those requests for granted. People think, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. They'll switch it. No, they told them outright no. What do you guys think about that?
What do you think about that, Moen?
They refused accord. When the ACC came calling, they refused accord. So that basically tells you that Clemson is done doing anything with the ACC.
Right.
Generally, when your conference comes and asks you to do something, they're telling you you're going to do this. Clemson basically told them, you can sit on a fire hydrant and spin your legs because we're not playing Black Friday.
Wow. Okay. You want to add anything to that?
I think Moen just absolutely nailed it. Really, look how toxic and dysfunctional the ACC is becoming with its member schools. Obviously, lawsuits galore and everything. And Clemson's like, no, I'm not going to move my game one day. Forget you guys. Seriously, they're not playing with ACC anymore, and it's got to be so toxic inside the ACC right now. Like if you're a school like Pitt, what are you thinking when you're seeing something like that? It's like, my gosh, like what are we doing in here?
So let's talk about that. What does Pitt do? Because we've been telling Pitt fans for a very long time on this platform, almost a full year, if not more, about the fact the ACC was not going to stay the way it was currently constructed. Big schools are going to be leaving for big money, more exposure, everything that goes with that. And we've been warning the schools that were just below them, Pitt being a primary one of those, they better start planning ahead. Louisville, if you listen to Louisville's everything they've said in the last 60 days, very complimentary of Brett Yormark, very complimentary of the Big 12. A lot of the people in their media have been talking good about what that possibly could look like. Pitt has done the exact opposite. They put their head under the rock and they've said, no, not us. Never. And they could be holding the bag.
You would have to imagine they're having some type of back-end dialogue with the Big 12.
You would think.
Right? No formal offers. We get that and everything. It's not going to be anything official, but you better be making some type of communication with the Big 12 to establish those relationships, because you might find yourself completely in an ACC that's so watered down it's not even close to like an A4 level conference. I mean, Pitt is right there on that line. So they better be making those kind of connections and contacts, at least at the admin level. We know the fans don't want to jump to the Big 12. The fans want nothing to do with the Big 12. The fans think that the Big 12 is beneath them. That's just really what we've got from a lot of Pitt fans out there. But I would hope that the administration is a little bit more wiser on the approach.
Moen.
Yeah, listen, Pittsburgh, see Utah, 2023. Exact same scenario. I understand you're going to be kicking and screaming until it's over, but chill out. Don't make too much of an ass out of yourself, because you don't have the football resources Utah had. Utah at least has the football resources where they can come in there and maybe win the conference. You ain't there yet, Pitt, so don't say anything at all. Just don't say anything. Just say no comment.
Yeah, like
as a Ute fan, I like being in the Big 12. I'm happy we're in the Big 12 and everything. But the Pac stuff, that all sucks. I would disintegrate it. But right now, I'm a happy man. So check it out. There will be brighter days ahead in the Big 12 for you too.
We got a super chat, another one from Ryan Willie, $5. It says the SEC wasn't any good until ESPN got involved with the SEC. I would say when Nick Saban went to Alabama, changed the ACC, the SEC.
100%, because you had USC, Texas, Oklahoma. You had Tennessee in 98, but I mean, it was good parity in college football. You had a lot of Michigan in 97.
Yes.
You had Ohio State in 2003. You had Miami in the Big East when the Big East was still around. There was good parity until Nick Saban jumped to Alabama. And that's when shit really hit the fan.
And I'd say the same thing about Clemson. Until Dabo walked in the door there, they were a good program, perennial, bowl team, but they weren't winning national championships and ranked in the top 5 for 5-6 consecutive years. Those are two coaches that changed the stars for both programs and entire conferences. It's pretty remarkable.
You could actually go back to Urban Meyer joining Florida too.
I would agree with that. Yeah, because they jumped right from Utah, undefeated, went to Florida, and immediately turned that around, right? I mean, I totally agree with you.
What about Steve Spurrier? Back in like the mid
90s?
to late 90s.
Yeah,
that was really when
I feel like that's really when it swung for the SEC, in my view. When Florida started winning, when they won the national championship in the mid 90s, because really, like before that, the SEC was just another conference, right?
Well, Tennessee, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Tennessee rose, right?
Yeah, Tennessee,
Florida won, Tennessee rose,
right? Florida was in
LSU
there.
had some titles, and right there too.
Yeah, LSU.
Auburn won one with Cam Newton, and then obviously Saban dominated.
But I think you raise up a good point. We're in these cycles. And right now, the SEC and the Big Ten cashed in. They took their chips and cashed in at the tip top of the market. They couldn't do those contracts today. And they cashed out. It's up to everybody else to do whatever they can to hopefully cash in their own chip. Even if it's at 50 or 60% value, got to stay in the game. Anyway, Ryan, thank you very much for your super chat. And then right after that, what do we got here, Moen?
Ryan Willie has gifted 10 memberships to the College Football Mafia family.
Yes, sir.
We got some new family. He gave everybody a birthday present. We got some new family here. Jeff Watson, CFB Plus, Almighty Finn, North End Zone U, Mr. Ed Wayner, Les Austin Jr., Chad Bracey, Rory McNamara, Hawkin 2, W. Jason Spangler. Make sure you thank Ryan Willie and wish that man a happy birthday,
Happy birthday.
in the chat for gifting 10 memberships to the family. The family keeps growing. Thanks to you, Ryan. We much appreciate it, and happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday again, Ryan. Thank you so much. And I would say this to those that received a gifted membership, consider paying that forward and gifting your own memberships to other people. That will continue to grow. We continue to bring in new people. I mean, we've been at about 140 viewers for almost 2 hours. That's pretty good. And we appreciate everybody being here. But if you receive a gifted membership, consider giving one to somebody else. Just like to say that we do want to grow the family. That's where we're really at. Let's see here. So thanks again, Ryan.
See,
that was
Bear Bryant, guys. Let's talk about this SEC.
Alabama.
So Bear Bryant was back in
Right.
the 70s, right?
And
The
the
60s,
80s.
70s, the Bear Bryant era. So I mean,
Yeah.
like Bama won a lot of titles
Yes.
at that time, grew its
Yeah.
brand and everything. But the SEC seemed to have a dip, like you mentioned, Bomber, and everything until like the 90s. When did
Yeah.
ESPN contract with the SEC for the first? Like I know Ryan mentioned that. Do you know what the timeline of that was?
Wasn't it like 2014 when they
Was it?
bought out
Yeah.
CBS? No, maybe it's later. Do you remember what that date is, Moen?
Well, CBS has been one of the partners for 25, 30 years.
No, I know.
until-
And what we're saying, when did ESPN take
That was
thing
just
over?
recently. That was just within the last 2 years. But
Oh, okay. So they were still dual broadcast.
SEC has been a partner
Okay.
with ESPN as well. They
Okay.
just CBS had that game of the week. That was a sweetheart
Right.
deal, forever and ever and ever. So,
And that was a game changer for the
It was.
SEC too, the exposure.
Yeah, very much. And these leagues, if they can get these partnerships, that's why Fox is so cool. Because Fox not only wants to invest in the TV, the Big Ten Network, they want to invest in the schools. They want to invest in these programs like Washington. What is it, $30 million or something? They have to build new communications building. BYU did that several years ago, and it's not cheap. It's a lot of money. They're taking loans from the Big Ten to do it, but they're investing. And when that gets finished, how good is the quality going to be of another broadcast from Seattle? It's just, they all should do that.
right. And when you build those buildings too, you can increase your class size because now
Right.
you can offer video production classes and multimedia classes and all these additional majors and minors that you might not have had before you had that building where you could actually use it as a teaching center as well.
I think we're through all the news. Oh, wait, no, there was one other thing. Morgan Scalley. Why don't you tell everybody about Morgan Scalley?
Oh man, so Morgan Scalley is the coach in waiting at the University of Utah. So once Kyle Whittingham retires, Morgan Scalley is going to be the guy taking over as head coach. He is currently the defensive coordinator. He's a star. He's been a Broyles Award winner candidate. He's a total stud. He's the right guy. He played at Utah. He knows the culture here. Bomber. Utah has a certain culture. You have to recruit missionary-based kids in the state and everything. You have to know how to do it. Do it right. Utah does it right. BYU does it right. He knows it. So he knows how to recruit in Texas. Been doing it for a long time. So very, very happy on the Ute end for Morgan Scalley to be the coach in waiting. But the question is this, though. Is realistic, guys, that Whittingham could hang it up if Utah makes the college football playoffs?
Yes, that's my
absolutely.
opinion. Yeah, if they win a playoff game, especially, I think he's gone.
If the Utes win a playoff game, I wouldn't be surprised if Whittingham retired.
I
if
think
the Utes don't get there, he probably is going to coach for a few more years.
Last year, if Cam plays and they're 13-2 or something like that, I think he retires. I think he's waiting to go out on that big high. Winning a playoff game is like the Super Bowl for Utah.
Yeah, it's the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I back up everything you said. Guy's a stud. He's a good person. He's good in the community. He gives back with his own time. He has a strong family, and he's homegrown. He's from here, and just a good guy. And I think Utah did the right thing. I'm not sure though. That's great. In waiting is still in there though. Somebody comes to him with a nice package to be a head coach. I don't know. You could say someplace like, I don't know, Miami.
Well, USC took a swing at him last year.
They did as the DC, not as the head coach.
Right. And so USC's gone after Morgan Scalley multiple times, and Utah's paid him more and more. Utah's paid a lot of money to keep coaches.
Yes.
Andy Ludwig with that Notre Dame situation.
Yep.
It shook out, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. Notre Dame wanted Andy Ludwig, the offensive coordinator, so bad. Utah paid him a ton of money. Utah's paying the assistant coaches a lot. They're all in, really at winning. So they're doing the right things, though. Is Morgan Scalley going to be the next Whittingham? Probably not, right? That's just Whittingham is a one-of-a-kind coach and stuff. Can he take the program to the next level? Ute fans hope so. We'll see.
If they do, they'll go from Urban Meyer, Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scalley, and I think any school in the country would take that. Yeah. 3 great guys. Well, 2 great guys. I don't know about.
TBD from Morgan Scalley.
Yeah. Maybe. I guess time will tell. All right, let's get to some. Let's do some Q&A. Are you guys okay with that? Am I missing something, Moen?
You got one super chat here.
Oh, go ahead.
Justin R. If the ACC dies, then the Metro Conference is coming back. Wow. UConn, Syracuse, Pitt, Louisville, Memphis, North Carolina State, Tulane, Southern Florida, and Virginia Tech. A new TV deal with ESPN and Turner. Then in the 2030s, we go out and grab Cincy, West Virginia, and UCF.
Wow.
That's some fantasy booking right there, Justin.
We're taking a couple steps down right there, Justin. So good luck in the Big 12 teams in the 2030s.
Well, I would just say good luck in your college football 25 fantasy.
Let him cook.
Let him cook.
Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
We will see you in the dynasty mode of EA.
There we go. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. We appreciate. Excuse me. We appreciate the super chat. I appreciate you being here. Let's jump just right into Q&A and people saying hi. Laura Wise says everyone will celebrate my birthday on Thursday. July babies rock. How about that?
Nice.
Your birthday's
Happy
July
birthday,
4th.
Laura.
Happy birthday,
Lord. We have
Let's go
something
get
for
drunk.
Syracuse to that.
There we go. I love it. Laura, thank you for being here. That
I
Texas
forgot
Tech in
he
the
said
house.
Syracuse in that super chat. You were right.
Did he?
He did.
Yeah.
Okay.
We owe him too, Moan.
Chief Fan says West Virginia was disrespected. We just talked about that. Thank you very much. David Floyd, Big 12 should consider using private equity for FSU, Clemson, and UNC. Sorry, boy, if they could get them by writing a check, I say do it.
David, yes. I mean, really, that's the kind of stuff you use private equity for.
Yes.
I don't know about UNC. I mean, the Big 12 needs football brands. So UNC for the Big 12, nice above average brand, maybe the best brand in the Big 12. That'd be the best brand. But FSU and Clemson, football wise, would lift the conference to a different level. Throw private equity at them, do whatever it takes. Absolutely, that's the kind of thing you do it for. And that over.
Let's see here. Keep Chopping says Pitt has a few fans. They go to games to take naps. Is that true, Moen?
I don't know. They kind of showed up for that West Virginia game. I will give them that. There were
They
some fans
do,
in the
yes.
stands for the West Virginia game, but other
Yeah.
games other than that, yeah. I see a lot of kids out there doing their homework in the stands.
Oh, brother.
No way. Come
Yeah.
on. Really?
That's not good. Stephen Vitt says, shout out to all the West Virginia fans in the chat tonight. Appalachia.
That's
say, I wish we had some country roads, but we can't play that because it's locked. Glenn Lumen.
Well, we could sing it if you really wanted to.
I'm not going to sing it. I can't sing it. Glenn Lumen saying, hey, all the way from the Philippines. Yes, we are an international broadcast. We now have people in Portugal, Slovenia, the UK, Australia, and the Philippines. So is that 5 or 6 international? We are a true international brand now. Appreciate everything you do for us, Glenn. Remember, don't forget about me when you come back to Utah. Let's see here. Almighty Finn says, can't wait till FSU goes to the SEC.
Okay, let's talk about this, guys. A really good question, Almighty Finn. So based on the interview we had with Bob, he did not say anything clearly about FSU or anything else, but he mentioned like, hey, Fox, how interested would they be in going into the South and everything? And you can kind of apply his logic maybe to FSU. Curious in your thoughts based on that interview, what you think about Florida State and the SEC versus the Big Ten now.
For me personally, and then I'll let Moen go. Look, I've always wanted FSU in the Big Ten. I thought they were a Big Ten brand. I thought that their academics was good enough. AAU, that can come and go. That I don't care about any of that. But playing those Big Ten schools, I would love to see Michigan FSU every year, or Ohio State FSU. Those would be fantastic games. And then of course you pick up the Florida recruiting grounds. But that's where I want. But where I think we're going to end up is, and this is what follows on with Josh Pate, with Greg Pflugar, peek around the corner. If you think about your ESPN and your whole world's about to blow up with the ACC network, basically losing all its value overnight, and you have everything in front of you trying to just survive, and you have a conference that is a bunch of stuck-up football guys, but they're top of the top, and they really know what they're doing, but they don't want to go past 16 schools. I could totally see ESPN saying, if you take these 4 schools, even 2 schools, you bring them in, I will bounce your network dollars to this. And it would be very hard to refuse. So I think Florida State, I'm still not sure about Clemson. Florida State, I had Virginia, North Carolina, and I've gone back and forth about the 4th one. It could be Clemson. I think Clemson is a bit redundant. But Georgia Tech would slide in. Sorry, not Georgia Tech. That's a big brand. I'm not sure who the 4th is. I guess you could say it's Clemson, but I'm not sure about Clemson. I still think Clemson would fit in the Big Ten, but I'm sort of on an edge with that one. So that's where I would think. Just common sense. ESPN's about to lose these big brands. What they could do is just, however they do it, cancel their deal and sign them over with ESPN without that tortuous interference coming up. Moen.
Yeah, we have to see, the Big Ten might not have a chance at Florida State, Clemson. They might want them very badly, and they might not even have a shot at them.
Right.
The SEC could just be waiting there, and, I know there's hard feelings on the FSU side against SEC because of the CFP issue this past season, but, when you think about it, for travel, staying in that geographic conference is going to be a lot easier for your fan base to travel to places like Georgia or Louisiana or Arkansas, or make it out to Texas. Those are all drivable distances. Whereas if you're kind of in the Big Ten, you're kind of out on the island. You're going to be flying everywhere you go to play a game. So your fan base might not be willing to travel to Seattle or Columbus, Ohio, or any of these places. So I think it makes more sense for Florida State and Clemson to be in the SEC. I think the Big Ten would want them. I just don't know if the Big Ten's going to have the opportunity to grab them.
The SEC, Florida State, and Clemson's an interesting one. Bob did mention that we're moving to brands over markets. And what the thing to focus on in the future is matchups.
Which we've known, by the way. We've known about the brands over markets for a while.
And it's a reminder, though, to us of how important that is, right? Yeah. So FSU brings different matchups, right? They've got a history with a lot of SEC programs and everything, so that would be a value add. So I'm curious on where Nole fans would want to end up in the SEC or the Big Ten. The outside view of both programs, I think that both would be much more advantageous to go to the Big Ten. I think that they could become powers in the Big Ten Conference, whereas it would be harder to get a lot of traction in the SEC with the established programs.
Yes.
So do you really want to sign up for that after you've been disparaged? I mean, FSU fans have been getting knocked on by Florida for a long time and stuff. If not being in the SEC, just getting knocked. And Florida State's one of the biggest brands in the freaking U.S. Like, come on. So do you really want to just go into Florida's conference and everything. Yeah, you can beat them sometimes, but they're established in there. Like, I just don't see a big win long-term for the Noles and the SEC. The Big Ten brings all the opportunity. Guess what? We're all going national. Freaking USC's in the Big Ten, guys, on the West Coast and stuff. That's just a new thing to do. So might as well make that Southeast footprint become the power in the Big Ten. And I can certainly see that's much more clear to me that you can become a power in the Big Ten than the SEC for the reasons that I spoke. So I think that FSU should really be pushing for that.
Morris Simmons corrects me. I said ESPN owned FSU. I was talking about their broadcasting rights for their home games, of course. I took it for granted. You knew that, Morris, but I appreciate your membership. You've been with us 4 months, and we really appreciate you. Do we have a sounder we can give Morris for that?
I'll give him a sounder. I'll give him a sounder here.
Go ahead.
ESPN's milking FSU. Milk. Morris, you're getting milked by ESPN. You're getting milked by so many other programs in the ACC. Wake Forest is basically, they're just sucking on your udder right now, and so is ESPN. So they're screwing you. Forget those guys. Go to the Big Ten to Fox.
Jamie, I'll get to your comment in just a second. Justin R. gave us another super chat, $5, said, hypothetical. So if no ACC teams make the jump to the Big 12, do you think the East Big 12 schools stay or they jump to the ACC to cut down on travel? I would, once Florida State and Clemson leave the ACC, they're going to lose 35% of their value. Basically, a third is walking out the door of everything they're worth. Any schools that left the Big 12 to go to the ACC, while it might be a peer-to-peer conference, as far as it goes for basically building their brand value back, they'd have to bring in probably 4, maybe 6 schools to replace those 2. And even that, they'd have to take a reduced payout. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, in the 2030s, after this next negotiating window, if these conferences stay together, then I would say anything's possible if somebody wants to pay the money. You guys want to add to that at all?
It's going to continue to be a knife fight with the ACC and the Big 12 for the bronze medal position. I agree with you, Bomber, though. If Florida State and Clemson leave, I think that it basically kills it. There's not going to be any debate anymore. I mean, Miami's not sticking around in the ACC if Florida State leaves with Clemson. They're just not. And Louisville is going to have an opportunity to go to the Big 12. I just don't see them sticking around. And so if you lose and hemorrhage multiple teams, like 4, 6, almost 10 teams, you're just not going to be what you were. And factor in ACC is getting paid basically what Big 12 is getting paid now. It's not even any difference now. With the 35% reduction we're looking at, it's going to be so dang low that schools are going to be embarrassed and freaking jump over to the Big 12. So it's going to cut the head off completely of Florida State and Clemson leaving the ACC.
Moen?
Yeah, I think we need to see what ACC exists. Who stays, who leaves.
What's the rump of the ACC left?
Yeah, what's left over? Because, I mean, if Wake Forest and Boston College are holding the ACC together, right, West Virginia's not jumping over there.
Very fair. Jamie's joined the chat. Good to have you here, Jamie. Good to see you. She says, in case you guys missed it, the Big East just got a much bigger basketball deal than anyone thought they would. $480 million. The talk has been how basketball is going to explode in value. It has now. Jamie, you're late to the show. We had Bob Thompson on, and we talked about that for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So I'd encourage you to go back and watch that part of the show. He comes in about 30 minutes in, so you can fast forward to that part if that's where you want to get to. Obviously, talking to Bob's better than talking to us. But we did talk about it quite a bit. We did talk about the schools are getting much more than they thought they were going to get, basically double what they did before. We did.
It's $7 million per school, though. Like, you got to put it into dollar terms, because I could say something double, triple, quadruple, 10 times her, but if it's $7 million total dollars per school, with everything we're talking about, with all the lawsuits and stuff and the house case, and like, guys, it's so small, you can barely survive off $7 million. Put it in perspective. We got to be realistic about it. One thing in the Bob Thompson interview, though, when he was asked about, hey, what does this mean for the Big 12? I don't know if you guys caught this and stuff, but it seemed like he didn't know if the Big 12 was going to be able to get like a double
Yeah.
The basketball portion and stuff. That might have been like a reach for someone like the Big 12 because of what's baked in already. So for the Big 12, again, like, don't be investing in basketball wholly, right? Like, do what you need to do in basketball, but focus on football. Football's the breadwinner. You got to do it.
Yeah, which is what Brett Yormark told Arizona, and he's now telling everybody, if they didn't already know. The Big 12 needs to be a football conference. Football. Mike Smith is back in the house. Good to have you here, Mike. He says he becomes a YouTube member, but right after that, I got this message saying he's been a member for 5 months. So I think there's some mix-up on the messaging, Mike. I apologize about that, but thank you for being here and certainly being a member for 5 months. We really appreciate it.
What does he say here? What is
Pittsburgh
this?
People are called Yinzers.
Yinzers. What's a Yinzer, Owen?
It comes from Pittsburgh people tend to say Yins.
Why?
They're penguins?
It's for you Yins. Yins.
Huh.
Are Yins going out to the bar tonight?
Oh, okay.
Are Yins going to go watch the Steelers game this weekend? Yins.
Like Yins for friends? Like,
no.
Is it derogatory?
You Ins. It's just just imagine youngins and it's shortened.
Okay, youngin. Okay.
Yins.
But it's actually
Yins.
you Ins.
So like Mo and my Yins are going to go out to get drinks after the show?
No, it's usually in a question format. Like, Moen or Yin's going to go out to the bar tonight? Because if you're going out to the bar, we'll come join you.
See, Mike always giving us that Appalachian education. We appreciate it, Mike.
We need it.
Thank you for being a member for 5 months. Jason Spangler's in the house. Good to see you, Jason. The Big East is sitting on back-to-back national championships. I think they're doing just fine.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think we said they weren't doing fine. Did you guys want to add anything to that?
I think that they're doing fine on the court, but if we broke out their financials, a lot of them are reporting losses. So who's funding the programs? The schools are, not the athletic departments. How long can that last? Not that long, guys. That's not the model.
Joe Z says, another member says, Pac-12 passed on BYU and died because of idiotic decisions. I would say the Pac-12 died because of multiple idiotic decisions, not just one. Not picking up BYU, certainly even with Utah, would have been a better choice than they made. So Colorado went into their conference and basically died for a decade. It made no sense at all. Timothy Green says, thank you to everyone on the panel. This has been a great show with a fantastic guest. Thank you, Timothy. We appreciate that. Cameron B says, Mr. Monkey says you do not inject $400 million into athletics to just stand pat. For everyone talking about the flashy object over here, FSU, Clemson, UNC, don't forget to look over here too at Kansas.
Give that man a Jayhawk squawk.
Yeah, Josh Pate said that on his show earlier today.
Did he? It says a quote. Okay.
That's a quote from Josh Pate.
Okay. Yeah.
Was he referring to Kansas?
Yeah,
was Pate?
KU.
Okay.
Really?
Okay. We've talked about Kansas possibly going.
Yeah. To the SEC, right?
Yeah. Yep. Dan Miter says, I think that music should be the entrance to WildU University. Do it, Moen. Change his music so it's the.
He got one. We got one
drop.
in there.
It's a humbling thing, Moen.
Just so everybody knows, we're counting down here. We're about 10 to 15 left. If you want to get your comment in for sure, it'll have to be a super chat here on in. We're still combing through the hundreds of comments that we've received tonight. So we appreciate everybody for giving those. Right now, we've flagged as many as I can find, I think. If you want your comment to be read before the end of the show, it'll have to be super chat on in. Let's see here. Shonsky says, private equity to pay buyouts is absolutely stupid. You don't think Florida State wouldn't opt out at the end of the grant of rights in 5 years? The Big 12 would be absolutely stupid to do that.
It's all about your return on the investment. And you'd have to break it out to make sure that in future media rights, it's worthwhile to be paying a lot of private equity money to Florida State. But if you break it out and the numbers make sense, there's going to be a lot of brand value, brand equity ads by doing that. So you'd have to do actually a deep analysis into it. That's how I'm going to take that.
Moen, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't agree with private equity, period. I think we talked about this on the show, bonds being an issue, especially for public universities. Go with that bonds situation.
I don't think you can take out bonds, though, to pay to a conference to entice schools to join your conference, right?
Right.
So
I guess you could just say it's a bond for discretionary spending.
that's a big open check, for sure.
So bonds are typically issued for colleges and municipalities for buildings, and like there's a purpose that you know what you're financing. So you'd have to disclose what you're trying to do with it. I just don't think that you could get bond financing for doing something like paying exit fees to pull a team over.
I don't.
So private equity is probably the route for that one.
It's not even your own exit; it's for somebody else's exit.
Right?
Yeah, I don't think so either. Sergeant Pickles in the house. This was earlier, so I appreciate you being here, Pickles. Sorry I didn't get to this until now. Just catching up. Every number analysis looking at Big 12 candidates spits out the same schools in this order: NC State, Miami, Louisville, Oregon State, Pitt, Wazoo. I find it hard to believe that NC State is above Miami and Louisville. What do you guys think about that? I agree with the rest of it. I think the rest of it seems reasonable.
I would replace the ordering for these. I would say Miami number 1, Louisville number 2, Pitt number 3, NC State number 4, and then Oregon State 5 and Wazoo 6 with these 6 schools. But there will be many other schools, including Virginia Tech, probably Georgia Tech too, ahead of Oregon State and Washington State.
Look, if the SEC gets Florida State, Miami is not a Big 12 candidate. The Big 10 has to take Miami. So I'm taking them off the list. So I would put Louisville, Pitt, North Carolina State, Oregon State, Washington State.
Okay.
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech would be in there in front of Oregon State and Washington State. I think there's just too much travel for Oregon State and Washington State, unless you're going to add more teams up in that region.
Thanks, Pickles, for the comment. Appreciate it. Devil Frog, the OG of Mafia Land. SEC ESPN is going to cock block the Big 10 Fox, UVA, UNC, FSU, Clemson to the SEC.
That's where like a lot of smoke's going right now. A lot of folks think that exact foursome right there: UVA, UNC, Florida State, and Clemson to the SEC.
It's hard not to. ESPN doesn't want to lose their investment. I think they want those schools. Florida State.
As Bob said, though, it'd be tiptoeing with this new agreement between Warner, Fox, and ESPN. Do you really want to be colluding?
He did say that.
Background. Yep. You'd be walking on eggshells. Keep that in mind. We just got some really good info on really how ESPN might be approaching this thing, and I don't think that ESPN is going to be forcing anything.
That's very true. You're right, Moen. You want to add anything to
that? No, I just like Bombers struggling to figure out cock block.
It took me a minute. You know what I thought? You know what I was going to say? I was thinking it was peacock. All right.
Oh, what a zoob.
It's a bomber, a zoob. Utes and zoobs.
Go Black 45, which that's one of my all-time favorite names, by the way. If FSU, UC, UNC, UVA get to leave and join the SEC, would that open up third-tier rights where Amazon could come in, ease cost for ESPN?
I think that would add enough inventory, but I think really what realistically you would want is the SEC to add an additional conference game.
Invest in yourself, basically.
Invest in yourself, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
We got a super chat here, Bomber.
Yeah, go ahead and get it.
Jens think FSU ever works with ESPN, SEC? I don't. I will say Jens believe that Florida State would be happier than a three-legged possum in a potato patch just to be out of the ACC.
Jens, Zoobs, and Utes.
I definitely think that they want out of the ACC first. And then second, they won in a P2 conference. I originally thought that was immediately going to be the Big 12, the Big 10. Now I believe trying to fortify and keep as many brands as possible in the SEC, that's where, if we're doing percentages, I say 65-35. But
Morris Simmons made a comment about 5 minutes ago. And there's so his point was that if FSU and Notre Dame, that combo, went to the Big Ten would all of a sudden become the football juggernaut over the SEC. So that was a really interesting comment because I've been thinking about that too. And I agree with that. I think that if the Big Ten happens to land Notre Dame and FSU, I think they overtake the SEC as the premier football conference. I think that's how big a deal getting FSU would be in football. Notre Dame's got all the history and stuff, but you're talking about national title contenders. Florida State's that. Notre Dame is kind of all show with historical viewership and stuff, but they're not real contenders. The Irish aren't real contenders, but the Noles definitely are.
No, but if Notre Dame said we don't want Florida State, we want Miami, what do?
They take Miami.
They take Miami.
Yeah.
But I think that you go that direction, but the point was if you get those two combo, FSU and Notre Dame would be probably the strongest two combo for the Big Ten.
I think the Big Ten's come a long way. They're already right on the edge of being better, I think, top to bottom. The SEC only has 16 teams. So it's easy to say, well, our top end is much better than your top end because they haven't added anybody. So we'll have to see. It's quite
possible. Do you guys realize, the damage that Florida State, getting Florida State in the Big Ten, the recruiting damage you can do to the SEC?
Oh, yeah,
think
it's
about
huge.
That.
Yeah.
They don't own Florida. They don't own the South anymore. All of a sudden, if you grab Clemson and a Florida State, how you can go down there and recruit because you've got a team in the state of Florida. That's it's the number 1-2 hotbed now in football. There are so many different advantages, and I get that you get that with Miami too.
Right.
You get Miami, and you still get in there. But if you get Miami and FSU, you have a strong hold in the state. That's huge damage to the SEC.
Well,
compared to the Big Ten.
And to me, that's why Clemson is attractive. You put a postage stamp over the Southeast with two schools.
You become the dominant football conference. You punch the SEC so hard by going into the South. You can't avoid going to the South. And I know Miami is probably going to end up in the Big Ten. Florida State's the one, though.
Until the Big Ten beats the SEC consistently in national championships, I don't think any one team or two teams is going to do it. All we have is Oregon is supposed to be really good this year. Ohio State's supposed to be really good this year. Penn State's probably looking at number 3 slot, in my opinion. And then you have Michigan and USC. So on the SEC side, you still have Alabama, LSU. Now you have Texas. Now you have Georgia. I still think the SEC is a superior conference.
Right. I forgot to add Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, I don't think adding one team is going to be enough to push the Big Ten over. And I'm a Big Ten guy. So
it is true. I forgot about Oklahoma and Texas,
So, you've got Oklahoma and Texas, but what the Big Ten did, they got into California deep, into LA.
Yeah,
so all of a sudden, you've got a California pipeline for recruiting. You're already recruiting well out of California. You strengthen it up. Texas, California, and Florida. You got to be recruiting hard in those states. You get into Florida, you're already in California. The damage, I'm telling you guys, that is a swing factor. For future supremacy here for football. And FSU is the crown jewel, I think, of overtaking the SEC.
I don't disagree with you. If they went to the Big Ten, I think they'd be better off. But yeah, we'll have to see. David Frame, welcome to the show, David. I'm not sure I've seen you before. Thanks for being here. Says Penn State's really good. I think they could actually become the Penn State of the past. I love the Penn State of the past. I just hope West Virginia can beat them at home in Morgantown. That game's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, that's going to be one of those opening week games that you really want to.
I agree.
Make sure to catch.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it. What sucks about you have to have two games going at once, like your YouTube TV thing. You can't record one and do the other because the whole time the score bug thing is telling you what the score is. I hate that. I wish you could turn that off.
YouTube TV, get 4 games at once.
4 games at once.
You got your betting app on your phone. You can bet right there. On the fly, prop bets, parlays.
Devil Frog says FSU settles when ESPN tells them to worry about the SEC contract because that's where they're going. Only thing left to negotiate is ACC exit, which will be 0 since ESPN is the puppet master. Moen?
That's audio recorded directly from ESPN.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Very good. Let's see here. College football plus. Good to have you here, man. So FSU and Georgia Tech to the big is what I'm hearing. That's certainly one of the options. Certainly one of the options.
One for the presidents and one for the network.
I think that would be fantastic. Really.
Georgia
Big
Tech. Hey,
yeah.
organic Georgia Tech citation there.
Now, okay, so you'd rather have Georgia Tech than Clemson?
Me personally, yeah, I'd rather take Georgia Tech.
Wow. I wouldn't.
I would not.
So,
isn't that amazing?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Nothing against
we're way over
Clemson.
here, though.
Yeah, but Georgia Tech's got great academics. They make sense as a rivalry for Purdue, and it gets you the Atlanta market.
And they're another speed bump for you, is what you're saying.
Georgia Tech would soon
winners, you
become
gotta
the
have
worst
losers.
team in the Big Ten.
There you
Georgia
go.
Tech would be the worst team in the Big Ten. 100%.
Georgia Tech's improving. They're improving.
Oh boy, one of our newer members says this is a great show. Thank you, oh boy. We really, really appreciate you being a member. Thanks a lot. Make sure everybody give us a thumbs up. Had a great show tonight. I want to get to one more comment. Oh wait, go ahead and do yours again, Moen.
Rocket Rant has been a member for 5 months.
Yes,
just
he has.
using this to laugh out loud at Florida Gators owning Florida. They can't even keep a quarterback from Memphis.
That's
Memphis
true.
got that FedEx money.
Yes, sir.
FedEx money.
Absolutely right. And Joaquin Morales, last in the house. He didn't get a shout out earlier. Appreciate you, Joaquin. Hey, Bomber, WildU, Moen, and College Football Mafia family, smash that like button, and it's free. It is free, isn't it? All right, Ute, we won't see you again until Friday. What are your last thoughts tonight?
Rewatch that interview with Bob. I sure will be. And just taking notes and stuff on what a brand is, how to measure brand, where to go find information. You better believe in the future WildU University videos, we're going to have some new metrics. 100%. So I just love talking with Bob Thompson. It's an honor and stuff. Hopefully you guys got a glimpse of really how a president thinks, like a former president of like a huge channel and stuff. So it's awesome.
Moen.
Yeah, when Georgia Tech gets added to the Big Ten, I'm going to look like a genius.
You are going to look like a genius. When Texas A&M moves over, you're going to be the new Greg Pflugar.
Yeah, I'll get a yellow jacket on one leg and an Aggie on the other.
All right, everybody. We had a great night tonight. I hope you caught us. And if you missed the Bob Thompson interview, watch it after we're done here. Jump ahead about 30 minutes. Bob will be right there. And he had some amazing answers to some really good questions, I think. And I think you guys would get something out of that. Also, I want to tell all our new members, especially the new members that were gifted memberships tonight, right after this, go and watch some of those WildU University videos. They're fantastic. They are under the membership tab on the main College Football Mafia page. And we really appreciate you. Other than that, I'm going to say good night to everybody. Have a great night. If you've been drinking, do not drive. And everybody have a great night. Watch Twitter for a show, yes, no, tomorrow. I will let you know. Other than that, we'll see you later. Peace.
Great.